Hello everyone, my name is Callie Orr. I'm a program manager here at CEA and welcome to CEA 101. We're excited to have you here with us today. Before we jump in, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. We have a lot of topics to go over and we're going to try to leave time for questions. If you have a question, please submit it using the chat function and we ask that you send to all participants when you have your question. We also ask that you please make sure that your mics are muted to allow the best experience for all of our participants. Lastly, we'll be sending out a recording of this session and the submitted questions for everyone for their reference. So I'd like to quickly introduce who we have here on the call. I am Callie Orr, I'm the program manager. I work with the on-site staff, so that is the staff that your student will be interacting with when they are actually on location. We also have Elizabeth Cather with us. She is our Director of Health, Safety, and Student Affairs.
Hello, everyone.
We have Alex Hazelton, who is our Senior Site Specialist.
Hi.
And we also have Alex Henderson, who is Associate Academic Coordinator.
Hello, everybody.
So just to give you a quick idea of today's agenda, we have a lot of topics we'd like to go over. We'll start with the resources that CEA is offering you. We'll also go over some of our academic structure, an overview of how programs work here at CEA. We'll talk about how you can plan for your students' departure, any information about country entry requirements you might need to have on your mind. And we'll also offer some practical tips about cell phones and packing for your students, as well as what they can expect for life on location once they are having their experience abroad. Before we jump into all of those topics, just to give you a quick idea of who CEA is, CEA stands for Cultural Experiences Abroad, but we go by CEA, Study Abroad. We partner with both U.S. and international universities to develop our study abroad programs and academics. And this is all with the goal of helping as many students as we can have the study abroad experience. So with all that background in mind, I'm going to pass this over to Alex Henderson to help go over our academic structure.
Well, hello again to everyone. I'm glad that you could all be with us this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I just want to very quickly go over the academic structures that we have for our programs. The first is that we do offer programs at our CEA Study Center. Those programs are where the students are taking courses simply at our center with our faculty, with other study abroad students. On the other end of the spectrum, we have our partner university programs where students are taking classes at a university in their new host country, oftentimes with local and other international students as well. We also offer hybrid programs, which is a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. It allows students to take courses at both our center and at the partner university. We also offer internship programs as well, which in addition to having the student gain work experience in the host country, they're usually taking a couple additional courses at either the center or a partner university. And the question that you might ask yourself is, which one is my student on? If you don't know, it's important to connect with them and talk about the academic expectations depending on what type of academic experience they will be having. Also, on that note, I do want to talk a little bit about academic expectations now that we've talked about your students' program structure. CEA Study Abroad has high academic standards that are enforced throughout your student's program. Regardless of whether your student is attending a center or a partner institution, there will be an attendance policy that your student will be held accountable to throughout their program. As an example, excessive absences will affect your student's grade. Note that the attendance policy while abroad may differ from your student's home institution's academic policy, and in many cases may be more strict. The policy is reviewed at length during your student's orientation, and there is academic staff available for support during your student semester. One thing that I would like to mention is that traveling will count as an absence for your student. So if you're planning on visiting your student during your program, which is something we highly recommend, please review their calendar to make sure that your plans coincide with your students' courses and academic schedule, just like you would if you were visiting them at their home institution. Traveling is not considered an excused absence, even if there are conditions outside of you or your student's control. Also talking a little bit about the culture of the classroom, just as the culture of their new city will differ than the culture of their home college or town, the culture of the international classroom will be different than the typical American classroom. While culture may be more strict than the students are used to, they will need to abide by these new rules. For example, phones are absolutely not allowed in the classroom, and the student may need to surrender their phone upon the request of the professor. Most professors will allow computers in the classroom, but that needs to be confirmed on the student's first day of classes. Water is allowed in classrooms, but students should not bring in food or other drinks. Punctuality is also key at the CEA classroom. Students are expected to arrive on time and stay for the entire duration of the class. And while there is no formal dress code, wearing pajamas, yoga pants, or other athleisure type clothes are not appropriate for the CEA classroom. And part of this international experience is not only learning the topics of the course, but also professional interactions in an international environment. Professors internationally are generally granted much more respect than their peers here in the United States. Students should always address their professors and CEA staff both in verbal and written communication with professionalism, courtesy, and kindness. Lastly, we want to mention special accommodations. If your student receives any sort of special academic accommodation at their home university, such as a quiet testing environment, a note taker, or extra time, please have your student contact their site specialist as soon as possible so that we can begin the process to ensure those accommodations can be guaranteed while your student is abroad. It's our goal for every single student to reach their highest academic potential.
Your students started their experience by working with a CEA admissions counselor to determine the program that would best fit their academic and personal goals. They were also directed to speak with their academic advisors, study abroad advisors, and you to be fully prepared to apply to the program that's right for them. Once accepted into the program, your students started working with their site specialists. Site specialists are your student's main point of contact from the time they are accepted into the program until they get on the plane to leave for their study abroad experience. Your student site specialist reaches out to your student through several different mediums, including text messaging, phone calls, email, and Facebook. They reach out to your student regularly to ensure they are receiving logistical and cultural preparation for their program abroad. Each site specialist is an expert in the programs they advise. In most cases, have been to the locations they advise about and are your and your student's best resource during this time. Your student also has a personal student accounts advisor who is a great resource for arranging tuition payment, from a customized payment plan to working with their school's financial aid office. This team is available to help support you and your student in creating the best payment strategy. I would like to highlight another amazing resource other than their site specialist. This is their MyCEA account, which you can see on the screen. This student portal contains an overview of all the preparation your student needs to complete before they leave for their program. It also has a lot of information to help prepare them culturally for their program, particularly in the Resources tab. They can also see their invoice and make payments in the Payment Info tab. If you would like to review the MyCEA account, please ask your student for their login information. Our goal is to help prepare you and your student for an excellent study abroad experience. If you have any questions about your student's program, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on our team. We're happy to help. Now Liz Gaither, our Director of Student Affairs, is going to talk to you about some pre-departure conversations.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was a great overview, and thank you, Alex, for our academic review. As CEA's Director of Student Affairs, I'm your resource for questions about your student study abroad experience outside of the classroom. So students study in a location for many reasons. Perhaps a parent or a sibling has studied there before. Perhaps they visited on a family or a school trip and wanted to go back. Maybe their friends have highly recommended that particular city, or they have friends going abroad. Or they would like to be the first to study and travel abroad in their family. As you and your student are reflecting about this study abroad opportunity, It's valuable to have conversations with them about what they expect from this experience and what you expect from them. What are their goals for studying abroad? Is it to complement their major or their minor? Is it to perfect their existing language skills or perhaps acquire conversational skills in the new language? Is the focus learning on absorbing local culture or learning about where family members may have come from and their heritage? Or is it to travel as much as possible and experience multiple cultures? What are your expectations for them? To earn those important credits for their degree, to grow in their independence or become a more resilient young adult, experience a new culture, develop a more global perspective, seek out and learn new career skills, gain international work experience? Looking at these different sets of expectations, this kind of discussion will help you understand your students' priorities and also share your hopes for them, along with helping plan for the time abroad so they can achieve their goals.
That's so right, Liz. Also, another thing to talk about is budgeting. So preparing a budget for studying abroad will involve more than the typical college budget of books, organization dues, and going out with friends. It's important to talk about the amount of travel outside your student's host city your student wants to do, as well as shopping and a dining budget. Every year, CEA provides a sample budget based on student spending habits over the last 3 years in that location. This shows both the low end and high end for additional costs, like personal travel, food, entertainment, course fees, etc. This can be found both on our CEA website and your student's MyCEA account.
Okay, so moving forward, we know there will be challenges in preparing for your student study abroad experience. However, working through those difficulties will not only help your student become a stronger and more resilient person who is better able to navigate challenges and setbacks, but also help you help them as they go through this experience. Your feelings of concern are going to be magnified at times by the distance and the new unknowns. While these same things are very exciting for your students, they may be a little frightening for you. Remember, from the day they first started school, you have prepared them and they have learned things from you to succeed in new environments. As they have succeeded in college, they will also succeed in studying abroad. Again, I encourage you to join our family groups to help balance your feelings with the support of other parents who are going through the same experience and have those same concerns.
I also want to highlight the family guide that you see on the screen. This can be found on the Family blog and by searching the CEA website, and is an excellent overview for any family member of a CEA study abroad student. Also, as a reminder, your CEA staff members here in the Phoenix office are here to help and support you and your student with anything during the pre-departure process. So to move on to talking about traveling around the program location, this topic that we are working on with your students right now. To verify if your student needs a visa, if you haven't done so already, please have your student connect with their site specialist. Visa processing can take up to 30 days, and it is important to begin as soon as possible. However, every student must have a valid passport. After working with your student to ensure that their passport is valid for at least 90 days after their program ends. Also, their passport needs to be in good condition, no rips or tears, and be signed on the data page as you can see in the example from the screen. If your student is planning on traveling to any additional countries outside their host country or traveling before or after their CEA program, their visa requirements may change. It is important to understand those specific entry requirements and what they will need to enter other countries. Additionally, if your student is not a U.S. or Canadian citizen, they will need to verify with their passport issuing country of any additional entry requirements necessary to study abroad in their chosen location.
I want to remind everyone that it is the student's responsibility to obtain any required visa and to have that valid passport. CEA cannot permit a student to participate in any of our study programs without proper documentation. And CEA does not intervene with foreign consulates to help a student obtain that documentation. If it is for any reason immigration issues are encountered with a student's visa on-site or passport, it's important that you reach out to the U.S. consulate in that country. Again, we will not be able to permit your student to study abroad with us if they do not have their documentation before departing the United States.
So moving on cell phones. This is one of the most common questions that we receive regarding a student study abroad program. CEA requires that all students obtain a working phone with either international or local service and provide that number to the on-site staff within 5 days of their program start date. This is to ensure that our staff can reach your student in the event of an emergency. Your student site specialist can help provide any additional guidance on cell phones in the pre-departure phase, and our on-site staff can help your student and answer any questions once they are on site if they need assistance. Please remind your students to give their numbers to the on-site staff within 5 days after their program starts. A great place to do this is by updating their personal profile on their MyCEA account. On-site staff will also collect this information during orientation the first few days of the program. It is important to remember that while Wi-Fi is available internationally, students should not rely on Wi-Fi alone to communicate with on-site staff.
That's a really important fact, Alex, and thanks for bringing that up. Because as you're trying to keep your costs down, we do not want to have anyone not receive a message from CEA because they were out of Wi-Fi service area.
So going off on cell phones, your student has 3 options for cell phones while abroad. The first option is using your current cell phone with a foreign SIM card. Some phone models can accept foreign SIM cards. Ask your service provider if your student's phone is capable of being used internationally. If it is, request they unlock it for you. This must be completed before your student travels. Your student then can purchase an inexpensive SIM card when they arrive on site. With foreign SIM cards, they purchase credit and must add credit when they run out. This is a good way to keep track of their budget and usually a cheaper way to communicate. Many foreign SIM cards cannot support internet, apps, etc. on smartphones. They primarily are for local calls and text only. Your option 2, obtain a pay-as-you-go phone upon arriving to their study abroad location. Pay-as-you-go phones are widely used internationally and can be purchased inexpensively in many stores. Similar to option 1, they'll purchase credit and must add credit when they run out. Many students choose this option and bring their US phone with them, keep it in airplane mode, and use it to access the internet in Wi-Fi areas. The third option, and the most expensive option, is using a regular phone with an international plan. This is convenient, but as I said, expensive. Therefore, we encourage you to research the different options with your provider before making a final decision. If you take a smartphone or a tablet abroad, the following apps are ideal for international communication: Viber, WhatsApp, Skype, FaceTime.
And just one more reminder about that CEA cell phone policy. It's really important that all CEA program students have a working cell phone for the duration of time that they're studying abroad so that we can reach them. So let's talk a little bit about packing. To make travel as simple as possible, CEA suggests 1 carry-on, 1 large suitcase, and 1 backpack. This allows for versatility later when the student may travel independently, and is also more manageable when there are not elevators to help with baggage, perhaps at their housing assignment. Check in with the airline for any restrictions, and be sure to comply with those international weight restrictions. Heavy bags can be expensive bags. When preparing to leave, they should be sure to bring their CEA arrival card, which can be found in their MyCEA account, their passport, and their airline ticket to the airport. They should also have copies of these items with them and leave copies of these items with you. While it may seem unnecessary, having at least a t-shirt and a change of underclothes in their carry-on bag and some travel-sized toiletries will be helpful if that checked bag is delayed. Most students have flown domestically and don't realize the delays that luggage can experience when traveling internationally. Students should expect to have their electronics screened, so should be sure they are fully charged and carry those in a way that makes them easily accessible. Do not pack any medication of any kind in the checked baggage. Any medication should be packed in their carry-on bags in its original bottles. If it's a prescription medication, the student's name should be clearly visible on the label, and it's good to have a note from the doctor as to what the medication is and why it's taken.
So for what to pack, we encourage you to research the climate of your student city and consider the season they will be there. The best advice we have for packing is layers. Your students should plan several outfits with the same clothes. Keep in mind if they will be visiting religious institutions that have dress codes, no bare shoulders or shorts, for example. Also, we encourage your student to bring comfortable walking shoes, not flip-flops. They will likely have to walk a distance commuting to and from school, as well as exploring many new places around their host city, so good walking shoes will be very useful.
Lastly, as you're making these pre-departure preparations, we encourage your students to have personal property insurance for their cell phones, computers, any expensive cameras, and to please leave expensive jewelry, watches, or anything that is irreplaceable at home. CEA does not provide renter's insurance or personal property insurance, so in case something should happen with a cell phone that's lost, a computer that is misplaced, we want to be sure that students have financial recourse.
So moving on to talking about life on location at your student's arrival. First, your student needs to arrive on the program start date, which can be found on the CEA website, in their MyCEA account, or by calling their site specialist. Please note, this is not the day that they will start classes, just the day that they need to arrive in their host site. CEA staff will greet all students who arrive on the program start date and provide transportation to those living in CEA housing. If your student's baggage has been misplaced by the airline, our staff will help them fill out a lost luggage claim before they leave the airport. Please remember, we cannot control how quickly the luggage is delivered, but we'll do everything we can to help the student receive it as soon as possible. If your student's flight is delayed, all they need to do is to look at the arrival card, which can be printed from their MyCEA account. Contact information for the on-site staff is on the card, and your student needs to contact them to let them know. The staff will work with your student to determine next steps. At this time, your student's on-site staff is now their best resource and new main point of contact. It will be their first instinct to reach out to their site specialist or to you if something goes wrong or if they have a question, but their on-site staff is best equipped to deal with any situation they face. They are in the same city, the same time zone, and are very experienced.
That's a good point to bring up, Alex. Thank you. Do you have a plan on when your student will first let you know they have arrived and for communication during those first few days? Please remember that due to jet lag, orientation, and their very busy schedule, those calls may not come when expected. You also may get a few calls in the late night or very early morning as your student settles into their routine. If you are used to speaking with your student every day or several times a day, be prepared for some gaps in communication and possible less frequent communication. It's a good time to set up a routine with your Viber or Skype or FaceTime applications. Let your student know you will worry less about them when you have regular touch points, and setting up a regular communication schedule so you can feel connected to your student helps your emotional up and down. Expect as they adapt to your new study abroad life, you may receive some emotional calls. This is a new experience and may be uncomfortable for them at times. Regular calls will help create a balance for them and for you, so the calls are not only when something is not going as expected, but also when they're having a great day or a regular day.
So moving on to some expectations, commuting is very common in all of our locations. Depending on the location, students can travel between 10 to 40 minutes. This is all part of the experience of living in a new country. If there is public transportation in your student city, it is very manageable in our locations, and our staff are there to ensure that students are confident in using whatever means of transportation is available.
We strongly encourage students to take advantage of mass transit and public transportation as opposed to Uber, which is our first instinct in many cases now. Whether they're staying in a homestay or an apartment, living spaces may be much older, up to 100 years older, than a student may expect. And while the ceilings and the windows may be taller or larger in those apartments or those homes, other features such as closets and clothes dressers may be smaller. There may only be a freestanding wardrobe for clothes storage, which is another good reason not to overpack. The internet may not be as fast or consistent in their home assignment, especially if all the students in an apartment or in a family living environment are downloading or streaming content at the same time. Clothes washers may be in a different location, like the kitchen or the bathroom, or even on a balcony, and clothes dryers will not be common. Students can expect to hang their clothes to dry on clotheslines or clothes racks. Laundry facilities may be in another part of the building for apartments and residential dorms, or used by a community. Laundromats can be found with dryers and laundry services, but they can be expensive. Planning around washing will be a new experience for your students.
So I wanted to take some time to talk about mail and shipping care packages. Before mailing or shipping care packages, confirm the address with your student's shipping instructions to your student's location. It is also important to note that packages can easily get stuck in customs if the receiving country has questions about its content, and custom fees can be expensive. Another very important thing to mention, you cannot mail medicine of any kind. All medicine that your student needs during their program should be carried on the plane with them when they depart. This is also true for electronics. Do not mail electronics to your students, as they can definitely get held up in customs.
Great, this is Kelly again. I want to say thank you to all of our presenters for going over all of those facts for you. We know this was a quick introduction to your students' experience. I just want to highlight a few takeaways before we move to questions. Please use the resources that are available to you and your students through My CEA, the CEA website, your site specialist, to help you and your students set proper expectations for what's to come on their experience. We really encourage you to develop an arrival communications plan as well as a budget with your students. And we encourage you to review your student's location and their academic program so you have a better idea of what it is they'll be facing. And really, we want you and your students to enjoy this experience. If you have the chance to visit them, we really strongly encourage you to do that. This is a big change for them, and it would be great for you to experience it with them. And I just want to remind you all that we do have CEA 102, which will be more of a focus on your students' health and safety abroad. That will be coming up on Thursday, July 27th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. With that, I want to say thank you to everyone for attending, and thank you to all of our presenters. And we have time for just a few quick questions. I'm going to start off. We have a question about calendars. Will you provide a calendar for the semester should families want to visit?
So there is a tentative calendar that is currently on our CEA website and in your student's My CEA account. All calendars are finalized once students arrive on site, and they will receive it from the on-site staff. We do encourage students to not make any independent travel plans until they have that finalized calendar when they arrive on site.
Also, when they arrive and have their academic orientation, they will get their syllabi for their courses, and we'll have a much better, more concrete idea of when major projects, exams, and finals will be as well. I really want to echo Alex's point that students should not be making independent travel plans until they arrive on site.
We have another question about doctors. So the question is, do you have access to English-speaking doctors in any location?
This is Liz, and I'll take that question. It's a great question, and I certainly, as a parent, understand your concern. Yes, Our CEA on-site staff have built relationships with individual providers, doctors, specialists, clinics, and hospitals that all have English-speaking services. In some cases where a hospital does not have a fluent English-speaking staff, there are translators and patient care specialists available to help the students through that experience, whatever it may be, during their hospital visit. Our staff also go with students as requested, help them make appointments, help them get to that location for medical care. We're going to talk about this extensively in CEA 102, your students' health and safety. We'll discuss their CHP insurance, which is carried by them while they're abroad, and anything else that you possibly might want to know.
And we're going to take one more question, and I'll just put out a reminder that we will be sending out this entire presentation, the recording of it, along with all questions that have been chatted into us and their responses. So if yours hasn't been answered right now, don't worry, we will send out a response. But our last question is going to be around housing, and when do the students find out what their living situations will be? Is it when they arrive, or is it before?
The students are sent their final housing assignments 1 to 2 weeks prior to the program start date. It will come from their site specialist, and so they will receive an email. And also a packing list will be attached to that email to help them with packing.
Great. Well, thank you to all of our presenters, and thank you to all of you for taking the time to learn more about your students' experience. It's a really exciting time for you and your student, and we hope that you are excited, getting prepared, and ready for this life-changing event that they're about to go through. Again, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at CEA 102.